Hey everyone, really wonderful hour ahead of us right here. I want to introduce you to Michael Stone of NeuroDynamic Breathwork, and a really dear friend making a real big difference in the world. We just want to dive right into it. Michael, I'm not even going to say too much about your background because I could talk about you forever. But let's just start with a pretty simple kind of a question. How did you get into breathwork yourself? And what's your story? How did you end up in breathwork?
That's actually a very good way to start this program. And to answer that question, I really have to give you a little bit of background on my kind of life growing up. And I grew up in, there wasn't anything traumatic. It was just a fairly normal type of life in California. I just had, one sister, it was a very traditional family. My father worked, my mother stayed home and brought us up. And I grew up and I was always very good in certain parts of my life, and kind of the parts where my left-hand thinking brain had to work. So in figuring things out, in being good at school and getting straight A's, I was always really good with that. And as I grew older though, what I found was that even though I was really good with that part of my life, the part of my life that was more emotionally oriented, I was having a lot of problems with, like relationships. And as I grew older, I found that I would get into relationships and everyone would end after about 3 to 5 months and it wouldn't end well. And so I would keep thinking, oh, I just have to keep trying. This is like, someone's out there that's the right person for me. And at that time, I wasn't advanced enough to really understand that there was only one common factor in all those relationships. And it wasn't the women, it was me. So, but I didn't get that at that point. So I was still in the space of like, okay, I'm going to blame the other people. There's something wrong with them. So I just have to find the right person. And I kept trying and trying and failing and failing. And I didn't totally give up, but I was getting very, very discouraged. And so kind of moved forward in my life. I was doing very well at work. I went to school. I got a science background. And I was really trying to model my life after my dad, because he was like my idol. So I saw myself, I'm going to have 2 kids. I'm going to get married. I'm going to be just like him. I'm going to work for a big company. And so my life flowed like that for a while. And then at a certain point, I got moved to New York. I got a great job, went to France, and was responsible for a large number of people there. But at a certain point, I realized that there was something missing, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And my first step was really realizing that, you know what, maybe this whole pathway I'm following isn't really my pathway. And maybe this is just this kind of conditioning. And what really brought that to my attention was at a certain point, I got married, and I got married at exactly the same time that my dad did. So exactly the same age, because this conditioning kicked in. It's like, time to get married, Michael. So I married the girl that I was with at that time, who happened to be in front of me, and that didn't work very well. So I got divorced about a year later, and that really broke up my whole conditioning around I have to have kids at a certain time, I have to be married, I have to, all that whole thing. And then when I went to France and I started seeing, I don't really like working for a big company. So it's kind of like my whole pathway blew up at that point, and I had to start looking at things anew. What's really right for me? What do I want? And so I ended up coming back to California and starting a company with my family. And so that piece of it started to work, but my relationships still, I could not make any headway with that. And the other issue that I had was I started making a lot of money, but I couldn't keep it. It's like, it drove me crazy. It's like I'd have successful businesses and then I would spend the money on like these really high risk projects and lose it all. And when I was looking at it logically, I'm going, this isn't logical. What are you doing, Michael? But it was just this pattern, this loop I was in. So at a certain point, I ended up through a bunch of coincidence doing a journey with ayahuasca. And at the time, I didn't even know what ayahuasca was. I just ended up, it was just kind of this happenstance thing that happened. Although now I don't believe in happenstance anymore. At the time, I thought that was the case. And I ended up in Peru and did ayahuasca. And I had this amazing experience. It was the first time that I'd ever really felt connected to the universe in a way where the world was a safe place. And so when I got back, I'm going, okay, that was amazing. But I'm not going to go down to Peru every week and have an experience like that. If I can have an experience like that with a substance, the receptors must be there in my brain. There must be other ways to access those receptors. And that's what took me on this journey that ultimately I landed on breathwork. And I looked at a bunch of different kinds of breathwork. And what I mostly looked at was, how did the creator come up with this modality? You know, even then, back then, there was a lot of breathwork modalities. And if it says something like, oh, I downloaded it from the universe, I was going, not for me. It had to be like scientific. And so I ultimately landed in holotropic breathwork, which was developed by a psychiatrist, Dr. Stan Grof, who developed the modality by using his experiences with LSD psychotherapy and the amazing results that he was getting when people were in these non-ordinary states of consciousness, where many times he got further in just a couple of these supervised sessions than in years of talk therapy. And that's, you know, when LSD was banned, he went and did research, looked at how traditional societies had access to these non-ordinary states, and then developed what he ultimately called holotropic breathwork. So I tried it, had some more amazing experiences. I said, this is for me. And so I ended up going through a 3-year facilitation program. And in one of my initial sessions, I actually got to the bottom of why I couldn't have successful relationships. One of the things that happens in breathwork is you kind of quiet the ego mind and kind of dive into your unconscious, into this piece of your psyche that I call the inner guiding intelligence, where you really do have all the answers within, and it brings you what you need. So what it brought to me was, in one of the sessions, I dove back into my childhood and saw that when I was very young, 4 or 5 or 6 years old, both of my parents are from, they're German Jews and barely escaped with their lives, when the Nazis came in. And when I would hear these stories from them, and where, for instance, my mom's father was a World War I hero. One of my ancestors saved the village when Napoleon was going to come through and burn it down, and he paid him off to go around the village, saved everybody's life. And then one day they just had to run for their lives, and where the whole society turned against them. And they didn't, give me any conclusions about that. They were just kind of telling me what happened. But as a 5 or 6 year old child, I made this decision at that point: the world is an unsafe place. If you can't even trust your society that you've been in for hundreds of years and contributed to, what can you trust? And what I saw was that when you go into a relationship from the perspective that the world is an unsafe place and you don't trust the other person, there's no way it's going to be successful. So what I was doing is I would go to a certain point, and then this unconscious conditioning would kick in. Don't go any further. You're going to get hurt. Something bad's going to happen. And I would kind of shut down. And it would drive the women crazy because they wanted to be in a good relationship. And I would kind of go to a certain point and then just kind of say, this is enough mentally. So I saw that I was at cause in the whole thing. And once I could see the mechanism, I could start to work with it. And so what I started to do was I started to, as I got into relationships in the future, when that mechanism came up, I just took a step back and said, okay, this is just a mechanism from a decision that I made when I was 5 years old, which is not accurate. And I started to look at the world that's totally untrue. It's like I saw so many times when the world really supported me in meeting my goals and moving forward. It was just a decision I made when I was a kid. And so I was starting to be able to push through that and see it and say, okay, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm not going to let this thought pattern of, oh, this is unsafe, stop me. And I moved forward instead, even though it was scary at first. And ultimately, it didn't happen overnight, but I ended up having more and more successful relationships. And to the point where right now I'm in a relationship that's lasted for a decade. That's amazing. Before, 3 months was the absolute max. And I got to the bottom of the money issue too. It was like what I saw was I'd made an unconscious decision when I was a child that the worst thing that could possibly happen was boredom. It was worse than death to be bored. And so every time I made money and I started to relax and there was no drama, there was no intensity, this boredom thing would kick in. Oh no, you're going to get bored. Let's create some drama here. Yes, let's go into these high-risk situations. Let's get some excitement. And so I got to the bottom of that too, and just stopped that in its tracks. There's this thing that had been like driving me crazy for years or decades. So, ultimately, I started to become more self-empowered because I started to see that all of the answers to these issues, I didn't have to go into the outside world to try to get the answers. They were already within. And breathwork was this amazing modality that allowed me to look inside, get more in touch with my unconscious conditioning, bring it to consciousness where I could work with it and really move forward in my life in a self-empowered way.
Well, that's really what neurodynamic breathwork is all about, right? I mean, it's, as you talk about, it's a way to connect to our inner guiding intelligence, right? Our inner wisdom, let's say. How do you tap into that, right? And I love that you bring up this, we're dealing with these unconscious, self-imposed limitations. And if they're unconscious, we can never deal with them, right? And so talk a little bit about how neurodynamic breathwork kind of gets us into this game of, first of all, connecting to our inner guidance, however you want to call it, and then working through or releasing these unconscious self-imposed limitations. What's the process? How does it work?
So first of all, one of the reasons that I developed neurodynamic breathwork versus just sticking with holotropic, which I've been trained in, was that one of my frustrations was holotropic breathwork is amazing, but it's a 12-hour day. You have to have a huge venue with lots of mats that people are laying on. You have to fly in facilitators. So there's only a very limited number of people that I could work with. And once I started getting into breathwork and I saw these amazing results people were getting, I really got in touch with the fact that my vision was to bring this to enough people in the world so that it could actually make a difference in world consciousness. To really spread it so that people could get these benefits, get more in touch with themselves, feel more self-empowered in their life, and really manifest the life that they wanted. And so I saw that couldn't be done in that structure. So I started to look for, okay, what structure can I do, can I create where I can really spread this to anybody that wants to do breath work? And ultimately, what I saw in one of my breathwork sessions is the only way to do that is to do it online. And so immediately my conditioning started to kick in. And it's like, first I said, okay, yes, this has to be done online. And then this little inner judge, which I think all of us have, this self-limitation judge, I call it, was telling, Michael, who do you think you are? You're 65 years old. You can't create an online business. That's for kids. What are you thinking? It's like, looking back, it's like I was in a situation, I didn't even have really a smartphone. I was, this is back in the day when I was, I don't know if you even remember this, Dan, there were flip phones. And if you wanted to text somebody, you had to flip the phone. And if you wanted to text a C, you had to push number 1 3 times. It took like an hour to do a little text because I didn't care about that stuff. And I would go into Facebook and I said, let's see what this is all about. And I'd see people were going, photos of their breakfast or lunch. And going, I don't care what this person had for lunch. This isn't for me. So I really had to get over all of this thing about social media because I knew if I was going to be successful, I had to have a presence on social media. I had to dive in and figure out how to market online. But because I'd done so much breath work, I really saw that this is just a mechanism. I can't do this, I can't do that. That it just wasn't true. And if I really focused on something and created this vision in my mind of how I wanted life to be, my mind would start to figure it out. And that's what I did. And that's what ultimately led to NeuroDynamic Breathwork. It's a modality that can be done in person or online. And I created it about a little over 3 years ago. And at the start, I was starting pretty much from nothing. I didn't know anything. And so first I had to test it to make sure it would work, because I didn't know if Breathwork would work online. I'd never tried it before. And so I did 6 months of testing, started to work with social media, started to figure out how to market, how to get myself out there. Until at this point, I have about 80,000 people in our community from 120 different countries. And it's just been a modality that people have been attracted to and where they've gotten amazing results in their life. And it's just continuing to grow. And it's really manifesting my desire to allow anybody that wants to do breath work to be able to do it. Since I'm doing it online, I don't have to charge a lot of money. Anybody with an internet access can participate. And we have groups anywhere from 50 to 1,000 people that just get together from all these countries around the world and breathe together.
Beautiful, beautiful. So everybody works with some fundamental principles. How would you run us through a little bit? What do you see as some fundamental principles of your work in neurodynamic breath work? And, what are they based on? And what's, I always like bringing principles into everyday life. So how do we translate the principles of neurodynamic breath work that you apply during a breathing session? And then how does that carry over into everyday life?
That's a very good question, actually. So first of all, there's really 3 pieces to how neurodynamic breathwork works. And part of it is psychological, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And there are many principles that you can bring back into your life about how this works. But the second piece, there's also a physiological piece that works during breath work, where there's actually it's just in essence doing deeper and faster breathing to music for an hour and just allowing whatever wants to happen. And so there's many basic principles, but some of the ones that are primary are, first of all, the way past is always through. Like when something comes up, the way to get beyond it and through it is to fully experience it and completely surrender to the process. So that's one of the key principles to neurodynamic breathwork, to let go of expectations. Even though you've done breathwork 100 times, every session will be different. So to let go of any desire or expectation to have it be the way it was last time, or to not have it be the way it was last time. The third thing is to trust yourself, trust your inner guiding intelligence. And that for some people doesn't come naturally. And especially if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, many times you can lose trust in yourself, lose trust in your capability to handle things. And you start to give yourself these negative messages of, I can't deal with this, even if it's unconscious. And you start to learn in breath work that when things are brought up, it's brought up because you can handle it and it's ready for processing. And this inner guiding intelligence that we all have, and people call it different things. That's just what I chose to call it. Because some people call it inner wisdom, higher self, innate intelligence. Some people see it as connection to source. But however you see it, connection to intuition, it's that part of your psyche that already has all the answers. And so during breath work, by quieting the ego mind, and again, part of it's psychological by letting yourself surrender, by opening up to the process. Part of it's physiological, because by moving more air through your system, you're actually creating certain physiological changes. Your blood gets more alkaline, and there's certain things that are happening in your brain. And interestingly enough, in many ways, it's similar to what happens with some types of psychedelics, where this portion of your brain that is called the default mode network, or the DMN, has less activity. And that's the part that includes like your frontal cortex, the parts of your brain that are responsible for the mental constructs of self and ego. So there's less activity in that parts of the brain, and that supports the quieting of the ego mind, so you can get easier access to this amazing inner resource that we all have. So there's a physiological, there's a psychological, and then there's a music. And the music is designed to support you in diving deeper into whatever experience that you're inner guiding intelligence is bringing you and that you're supposed to have in that session. And so all of those principles can also be brought into your life. It's really important. It's like, many times we have experiences in life where we go to a workshop and we get all pumped up and, this is great, this is awesome. And we go back into our life and like everyday life, all the issues kind of slap us in the face and it's all gone. And so it's the same thing with breath work. You can have this amazing experience, but if you don't integrate the experience, it doesn't really support you in making major shifts in your life. So part of what we teach and what we talk to people about is taking these principles and starting to use these principles in your everyday life, because these are not principles that just work in breath work. They're life principles also. And when people do that and they really take the time and the energy to bring these principles back into their life, they can have incredible, incredible results. And it's kind of like you bring your life into your breath work, and then you want to bring your breath work back into your life. It's this circle. And normally in everyday life, we have this circle where we're constantly going through the same stuff, but we're not learning our lessons. So it's this round circle. But when you go into breath work and start to get these answers to some of the questions and get more in touch with your unconscious conditioning, instead of a circle, it starts to be an upward spiral where you start to, okay, here this happens, but then you go to the next level and to the next level, and instead of just kind of being this like rat in this trap, continuing to go in the same circle over and over and over again. And so actually, I just want to share what, like just one of our participants, how they brought some of these principles into their life. So I'm just going to put on a little PowerPoint here to go through it.
Beautiful, perfect.
Okay, so this is a, what do you call it, a share or testimonial from one of our participants who then later went and actually did our facilitator training program about how she brought the principles into her own life after doing a series of breathwork sessions. And these are the three principles that she chose, that she resonated with, that she wanted to really use in her life on an everyday basis. One is trust and surrender to whatever happens. The second is your psyche will bring you only the experience for which you're ready. And the third is the only way past is always through. And so this is, again, from her share, and where she said, in NeuroDynamic Breathwork, I found an extremely efficient gym platform in which a regular training and practice of its underlying principles of surrender, openness, and non-reactive acceptance allows us to bring the same attitude to every moment of our lives, to that unique music set played for our souls to help us wake up and see the truth of our being. And then basically it's a question of where she was starting to see that every experience can become an opportunity to learn and grow in her life, and where life becomes mysteriously beautiful and intelligent no matter what events take place in it, and that any suffering is converted into learning because all confusions disappear. And again, this is one of the lessons that I really started to realize after I started to see about my relationships and my money, in that life is not the enemy. It was like I was looking at life as something that I had to battle against and fight against, and was bringing me these obstacles, and it wasn't doing me any favors, to the point where I came to, everything that I experience in life is a learning opportunity, and it's my friend, and I'm to welcome everything. And that's the place that she got to also. And then when she started looking in, she said, when I was bombarded with doubts and questions, I would turn toward that silent voice of my inner guiding intelligence, which, like an invisible ghost, filled me with faith and determination. And again, once you start to do this breath work on a regular basis, you can start to get better access in your everyday life as you strengthen that neural pathway, and just take a few deep breaths and start to get these messages from within of what needs to happen and which way to go. And then she said, as I spent more time in that space, I unlocked a source of incredible joy and creative power. I began experiencing my life as unfolding in a smooth and effortless flow in which pure and simple being is absolutely enough for fulfillment and happiness. And her conclusion was, life is your deepest breath work. Trust its flow.
Wow, beautiful. I can see why, we talk about neurodynamic breathwork as a kind of a radical self-empowerment kind of process, right? And it's really interesting that there seems to be real universal benefits to breathwork. We hear similar reports from people during, after sessions, that there's something really universally powerful about breathwork. But you teach breathwork, or you guide breathing sessions in a very different way than many other breath workers. And that is, you don't guide people during their session. And that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit more. And I know as I praise you in the world, and I send people to you, and I just love the work you're doing, and how I describe you, and because I like to be a secret shopper. I'm a breath worker, and so I sign up for people's seminars quietly, and I kind of watch. I try to be a fly on the wall. I want to see what people are doing out there. And, because I've been doing this for so long, and I used to know everybody. 50 years ago, I knew everybody who was teaching breath work in the world, That's impossible now, because thousands and thousands of people are doing it. And many people are trained and coached on how to guide people through their sessions, what to say, what to do when there's things come up, what to say to them. But what I tell people is that when I've experienced your process, the preparation that you do is just perfect and amazing. You put a lot of energy into preparing people for their session, and then you put a lot of energy into being with them after their session and staying with them as long as it takes for everybody who's got anything that they need to, get answers to about their session, that you're just with them for as long as it takes. I just love that about you. The preparation that you give people, and then how you stay with them afterwards to integrate. But during the actual breathing session, you remain completely silent. So let's talk about that, because that's a very unique style in breath work. Yeah.
Yes, when I developed neurodynamic breathwork, one of the things that I did was I tried other people's breathworks. And what I found was that the most effective breathwork style for me, which is also done in holotropic, is that during the session, and I explain this to people beforehand. So during the preparation, I talk about the principles. I take 30 minutes at each session to go over the principles, to go over what you might expect, make sure that everybody's fully prepared. And even though I give people like PDFs to read and stuff to read beforehand, I always assume that they don't know anything when they come into the session. I want to make sure that they're really prepared and that they can get the benefit out of the time that they're putting in. And so I go through all the principles. I go through what might happen to them, what might happen in their body, what type of, they might have visuals, I go through all the types of experience they might have. So whatever comes up, they're ready for. And it doesn't frighten them because, oh my God, is this something weird that's happening to me? Is this just to assure them that they are normal breathwork experiences? And so I fully prepare them beforehand. But during the session, like to me, when I tried all these other things, I really didn't like guided sessions. I'd be right in the middle of a session and say, all of a sudden anger wanted to release. And then I'd hear this voice out of the void saying, and now open yourself to love, or this or that. And I was ready to kill the person. Let me have my experience, please. So, in my sessions, even though people can connect with me in private chat if they need support, during the session, it's guided by their own inner guiding intelligence. And that's part of what makes neurodynamic breathwork so powerful, is that they start to train their psyche, that the answers lie within, and that they don't need to give their power away to the world to find out what they need to know. So, and the more sessions they have and the more of these results that they produce, the more they start to train their psyche and develop that neural pathway to this, part of their psyche that is capable of giving them the answers. So that when they go back into their life and they're looking, what's my purpose in life? They don't try to go take a course. They just close their eyes, connect, and look inside and try to find the answer there, and start to depend more and trust themselves more. And really, that's the way, I think the title of this talk is how to really flow with a world that's changing so rapidly, with all the things that are happening right now, with the pandemic, where things will never be really the same as they were 2 years ago. Some things have permanently shifted. How do you navigate that? And the way to navigate that is to work with your own inner resources, because you really do know how to navigate change and to be resilient. It's just that we're trained to look into the outside world for the answers. And that's what confuses us. That's what brings us into a place of fear. And we're reading in the newspaper all this stuff. It's, oh no, the horrible things are happening. I can't deal with this. And unfortunately, our society benefits from us giving our power away, our culture. If we are constantly bombarded with these messages, like on television and the media, you're not happy now. But if you buy our car, you'll be happy. Or if you get this bigger TV, then you'll be happy. Or you're not having a good relationship, but if you buy this car, all the women will come and you'll be in a great relationship, or whatever it is. Because if we were happy in the moment, we wouldn't have to buy this stuff. Our entire capitalistic society would collapse, because people wouldn't need a new iPhone every year. They wouldn't, need to buy the latest product. So it's not in our culture's best interest to have us self-empowered and to have us feel like we already have everything that we need. So we have to get beyond that condition. And that's part of how breathwork is great, because you start to strengthen that neural pathway to your inner guidance and kind of fight back against this programming that we've had since we were children, and start to see this programming and not have to be at the effect of it. So, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I make it non-guided. So people, and that's why I also tell people, some people want to come in and combine breath work with some kind of substance, and mix things together. And I always tell people, first of all, it's not safe, because no one studied the combination of what's happening internally in your body physiologically with a substance. But also beyond that, you're destroying one of the basic purposes of neurodynamic breathwork, where you're basically training your psyche that all you need is to look inside to get the answers. You don't need substances. You don't need someone in the outside world to take your power away and to give you the answers and to depend on them. In the same way that you don't need the facilitator to tell you what you need to experience during your breathwork session.
Yeah, that's so I can start to see how, how we can take these principles in neurodynamic breathwork to really help us thrive, like in our everyday life. And so any practical ways that you can give us or share how people actually do that? How do I take the principles that I practice during a session, and then how does that translate over into my everyday life? I know a daily practice sounds like a main point, but what can you say about that? Making this, it's more of a lifestyle, isn't it? It's but how do you bridge that, the session versus our everyday kind of activities and life and reactions and so on?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's not something you necessarily have to do every day, but you have to do it on a regular basis enough if you want to get that second level of benefit. You can get an amazing benefit just from one session in breathwork, where you get a realization you can then bring back and work within your life, like I did with relationships. But to get to that second layer where you really feel self-empowered in all the areas in your life, it was very supportive to make it into a practice. And there's a lot of principles that we have in neurodynamic breathwork, but just to give you an example of just 2 or 3 of them, one is let go of expectations. We spend almost our entire life in this place of expectations and comparing what's happening to what we think should be happening, or what we want to happen. We're almost never present in the current moment. And it's just kind of like our brain is always judging and comparing. And it really robs us of having a deep experience of life, because we're never just now, in this moment, surrendering to what is and what's happening, like we train people to do in breathwork. And as you can start to bring that principle into your life, when you see you're setting an expectation, just noticing that, bringing self back into this present moment. What's happening in my body right now? What's really happening in this moment? What is there to experience? You start to see that every moment in life is really a miracle. Just being alive, having our five senses, being able to feel, to be in this amazing world that we're in. And you start to get this reverence for life and this of the preciousness of every moment. And so that's one of the things you can do.
And it's really interesting. We say that and we hear those words, and people think it's something that they need to figure out how to do. But I think one of the beautiful things about breath work is that these states just arise in us. I mean, we just find ourselves feeling this love and gratitude and this clarity and connection. It's not like we made it happen somehow. It just seems to be the side effect, automatic side effect of focusing on our breathing for an extended period of time and allowing, trusting. So I can really, I get a really lovely taste, a flavor, let's say, about your work. And so maybe we could do, you could do a little short exercise just to give people a little bit of a sense of, neurodynamic breathwork. And, you can't give a full experience in a few minutes, but we can give people a little taste of how it works and what kind of, what the process is like.
Sure, absolutely. And before we get to that, I just wanted to kind of tell one more story. And first of all, what you're saying is absolutely true. And one of the best ways of bringing yourself present is bringing your attention back to the breath. That puts you in your body. It's so important to stay connected to your breath, to your body on an everyday basis. Your body is always in the present moment. Your mind is generally in the past or in the future. And the more you can be present in your body, and breath is the most powerful tool to do that, the more easy it is to let go of expectations and really be present in the moment. But the last story that I wanted to tell you before we just go into a short little demonstration is, when I was a child, it's like when I was 17 years old, the world was a pretty scary place. And part of it was I was already programmed to find those pieces of the world that were a scary place from my kind of unconscious programming from when I was 5 or 6 years old. And this kind of dates me. This is like in 1971, I was 17 years old. And I was in a world where it felt like we were always on the brink of nuclear war with the Soviet Union. This was the time of the Cold War. And where, when I was in grade school, we used to have drop drills. This really dates me, where they would say, drop, and you have to get under your desk in case a nuclear bomb exploded. Now, why that would help, I don't know, but we did these all the time. But it was just this incredible, fearful place the world felt like, where at any moment, the whole world could explode. And, it was the time of the war in Vietnam. And there were stories like where, Nixon, who was president at the time, would send bombers with nuclear weapons right to the Russian border to show them that we were serious about winning in Vietnam. And it was the time of the draft. And it was the case where I knew that in a couple of years I was going to get drafted and have to go to Vietnam. And that scared me too. So I was in this place of fear. And then in 1971, John Lennon came out with his tune Imagine. And that had this amazing impact on me. It just like, oh my God, I just sobbed the first time I heard that. And where, I don't remember all the words right now, but it was like nothing to kill or die for. Imagine people living life in peace as one, like, a brotherhood of man. And then I remember he ended with, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. And in that moment, I said, you know what? I'm in. At some point in my life, I'm going to create this mini world for myself where everybody can participate. It's all about love and it's all about connection and supporting each other. And everybody can feel like we're all the same. We're all one. We don't have to fight. And that stayed with me for my entire life. And, as I grew older, there was no technology for it at that point. I had no idea how I was going to do that. But I knew that was part of my life purpose. I got that kind of inclination at that point. And then, later, as I went through breath work and I got into NeuroDynamic Breathwork, and I started to do these online sessions. where there were people from all these countries that were participating. And then at one specific session last year, we do these special sessions every now and again with themes where it's like for world healing and that type of thing. So I had this one session where we capped out Zoom, which is 1,000 people. So I couldn't get any more. So we had 1,000 people from 65 different countries around the world participating, breathing as one, supporting each other, sending love to each other, having a sharing circle, being open-hearted, just helping each other. And I like burst into tears because I said, this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted to create, and to be able to self-empower people and to support people and really seeing that we're all the same. It was people from 65 different countries, all races, all sexes, all religions. It didn't matter. Everybody felt like they were part of just citizens of planet Earth. So, and the reason I'm telling that story is I just want to really encourage people. If you have a dream, even if it's at the time you have it, and even if it was 20, 30 years ago and it's still sitting there and nothing's been done, it's no matter how big the dream is, it can be accomplished. Even if the technology doesn't exist, it's like if you put your mind to it, if you connect to your inner guidance, if you open yourself up to how you can make this happen and give your consciousness, your psyche, a task of making this happen, it will figure out the way. So, stay in touch, be in touch with your inner guidance, find your life passion and make it happen. You're totally capable of manifesting the life that you want in your life. And actually, you're the only person who can manifest that destiny. Based on your history, you're unique. You've had your own obstacles that you've passed, these own strengths that you've gotten from your life, and you're uniquely capable of bringing yourself to the world and creating and manifesting your own unique destiny. And just go for it. That's really the message.
Yeah, I mean, you're reflecting something really beautiful, and that people are often drawn to breath work for the spiritual benefits, but many people are kind of surprised. That wasn't their idea. They just wanted to, I don't know what they wanted to do, but their heart opened. Yeah. The connection, the feeling of connection with other people was no longer philosophical, it was felt. Yes. And so if people aren't already spiritual when they come to breath work, it's almost inevitable that they begin to develop spiritually, that they start to recognize themselves as spiritual beings, as part of a human family, and that hearts are connected and that minds are connected. And so it's not just about personal transformation, it's about planetary awakening, right, and harmony. And so it's perfect. I think, it's interesting. The universe works this way, right? What's needed shows up exactly when it's needed. And in this time in the world, navigating these intense changes and unplanned, unexpected, intense global changes, if we don't have an internal anchor, if we don't have an inner guidance, oh my God, it's going to be hell. And so I'm so glad you are waking people up to the breath, turning them on to the breath, because that's what leads us to our heart, to our higher intelligence. And so in a practical way, in a neurodynamic session, I know you're going to give us a little taster, which I'm really looking forward to, just to kind of get a sense of what we can create for ourselves. And I think that's something that you really recognize. Nobody does anything to us. Nobody's fixing us. We are somehow accessing our own inner wisdom, our own inner healer, our inner teacher. And it's quite an organic, natural process when we sort of open to it and surrender to it. It doesn't take a lot of knowing. We don't have to figure out a lot of stuff, right?
Exactly. And you can't get there just with your thinking mind. It's just not possible. It's like you really do have to connect to this inner guidance and to this, and also really get this understanding that it's to the world's benefit for us to be in this kind of victim place where we have to depend on something in the outside world to be better people or to be happy or whatever. and to get beyond that to this place of self-empowerment where we search for the answers within. It's so powerful. And it gives us so many extra resources to work through difficult times and obstacles and treat them as learning experiences instead of being traumatized by them and being held back. So,
well, and that's that when people breathe together, conspire, conspiracy, I can see why that word developed a negative connotation over the ages, because it threatened power structures. It threatened external power structures. If I connect to my own inner authority, I don't have to listen to somebody else out there. I know what I need to do. I know who I am. I know what's right. I know what's true. And so, boy, this is needed more than ever in this time in the world when, I mean, who do you trust? How do you know what's true? Who do you listen to? Boy, when these questions start coming up, it's time to breathe. It's time to go inside and connect. And so why don't we do that? Can you set something up for us so we can get a little taste?
Absolutely. And just one last comment, I promise, and then we'll do the taster. What you're saying is part of why the sharing circle at the end of the breath work is so important. Where you and that's one community that we offer, where people are just in this amazing worldwide group where they can open themselves up, hold space for other people to share, learn what that means, share themselves to really embody their own experience and really feel connected to this worldwide community. But then we also really encourage people to go into their regular life and create a community that they can support and supports them also. And community is so important because sometimes things can get you down where you get sidetracked. And it's important to create a support structure in your life to actually keep you moving in the right direction. So, all right, now we can do our little taster here.
Yeah. No, there's nothing like belonging to a breathing family. It's certain things you don't even have words for, and you just need to connect with somebody else who's had a similar experience. It's like no words are necessary. If you haven't had the experience, no words are enough. And if you've had the experience, no words are necessary. And so that community element, I think that's such a really important part of this. Because if you're flopping around on your own out there, wondering what's happening to me, and all you need to do is connect with one other person, go, oh yeah, I felt that too, right, yeah, okay, got it, I'm okay, it's okay.
Exactly, and if it's only a you, sometimes you start to doubt your experience. Was it only me? Is it really real? And community is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Right, so let's do our little taster here. And a neurodynamic breathwork session is 60 minutes of music. So we're just going to do a little 5-minute taster. And so just to prepare, I'm just going to describe the breathing technique for a moment and then kind of how to really drop into this. So the first thing is you're going to want to be for the next few minutes in a place where you're not disturbed. You want to, if you have a headset, awesome, or earbuds or whatever, but we're going to play music. So you want to be able to hear it and play it at a reasonable volume. And so you're kind of enveloped in the sound. And so whatever, that way is for you, great. You want to be comfortable. Sitting in a chair is fine, or you can lay down. It doesn't really matter, but you want to be comfortable. And the breathing technique that we use in neurodynamic breathwork is as follows. You want to breathe in and out through the mouth. And this is not a technique you would use in your everyday life. This is specifically designed for breath work. So in and out through the mouth. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is you can move more air, and it does take a little bit of time to drop in to have these physiological changes take place. And also whenever you're in a release state in your life or an emotional state, your body always switches to mouth breathing. So it kind of gives your body permission to release. Second of all, you want to take full, deep breaths into the bottom of your lungs so that when you breathe in, if you put your hands on your belly expands. It's like your belly expands, your diaphragm expands, taking full, deep breaths. And the fullness of the breath is more important than the pace or the speed. Just breathing just a little faster than normal is totally fine. It's not like this, like that. So it's, And you want to breathe in a way where there are no gaps, where you're always breathing in or breathing out, just creating this circle of breath. And you want to keep your eyes closed during the entire experience. This is an inner journey. And open yourself up to whatever wants to happen. If your body wants to make a sound, let it come out. If your body wants to move a little bit, let it happen. Surrender to what wants to happen and just open up. Don't try to figure anything out or set any expectations with your mind. It's just be in the moment and just allow. So it's very beautiful in that way. There's nothing to do, just breathe. So, and ultimately, as you, the music, the last minute or minute and a half will be very gentle. And you want to start trusting your body about the breath towards the end. If your breath wants to just come back down to a natural, soft rhythm in the last minute or two, that's totally fine also. As it gets towards the end, just follow what your body wants to do. And really, the purpose of this is not to have in 5 minutes, it's not about having this mind-blowing experience, just to get a little sense of how breath work, just even a few minutes, can put you in your body and put you in a different state. So I'm just going to guide you for about a minute or two, get you going with the breath, and then the music will start. And again, you want to close your eyes or put an eye mask on. Either one is fine. Just take one deep breath, bring yourself into your body, letting go of what happened earlier today, what's going to happen later. Just bringing yourself into the moment, into the now. Just watching the breath. Being with yourself in a very gentle, loving way. And now, for a moment, doing a quick body scan and releasing any tension in your body that you can. Letting your jaw relax, your face muscles, your fingers, you might want to wiggle them around a little bit, maybe stretch your shoulders, and make yourself as relaxed as possible in this moment. And now, bringing your attention to the breath and starting to deepen the breath, starting to take full deep breaths in and out through the mouth, but keeping your body relaxed, no tension or stress, making it a full, deep, but enjoyable breath. Breathing fully and deeply, deeply and fully, fully and deeply. And now, breathing in a way where there are no gaps. We're always breathing in or breathing out, creating a wonderful circle of breath, but continuing to take full deep breaths. And already, you might be noticing that your consciousness may be changing a bit. You may be feeling a little bit lighter in your body. And noticing that, but staying focused on your breath, putting all your intention on the breath. Breathing fully and deeply, deeply and fully, fully and deeply. And now, just breathing at normal rhythm or just a little bit faster than normal, maybe just picking up the pace just a slight bit, seeing what feels right to you, but staying with the full deep breaths. Breathing fully and deeply, deeply and fully. And for some people, it supports them in making a little sound on the out breath. And if that feels right to you, you can do that. And sound and movement and emotions are some of the key ways of diving deeply into the process. Breathing fully and deeply, deeply and fully, and starting to allow and surrender and seeing if your body wants to move a little bit, let it move. If sounds want to come, let them come, and opening your heart up to whatever experience will come to you in the next few minutes. And in a moment, the music will begin, and have a wonder-filled journey. And now, if you have not already done so, slowing down the breath to a normal rhythm, being in a place of stillness and presence. Now just taking a few more moments, if you need them, just to come back, just to be present. And for some people, it supports them in putting their hands over their heart, just feeling your breath going in and out of your lungs, being present with the essence of life within you, being with yourself in a very tender, open, and accepting way. And just staying in that place for as long as you need to now, just for a few more moments if it feels right. And regrounding yourself, feeling your feet on the floor, connecting to the healing energy of the earth. When you're ready, opening your eyes.
Hmm.
And really just noticing, has your consciousness shifted a bit? Do you feel a little more relaxed, a little more grounded? Just from a few minutes of breathing.
Well, simple things, simple things are so powerful. I love this, I guess maybe I've practiced a lot, but it doesn't take very much where I land in this beautiful place. It's like we're energized, but we're also very calm. We're like overflowing with life, and yet there's something still inside. It's hard to even talk about, but it's such a unique state of like vibrations and tingling and aliveness within this field of just sort of simple, present, uncomplicated kind of clarity. It's such a universal state, I think, that it takes us to somehow, that the breath, I don't know, it connects, it's a bridge to something. It's a bridge to a certain state. And I don't know why people would want to leave it. It's very often in a breathing session, I just like, okay, I can just stay here forever. Why would I want to do anything else? But there are things to do, people to see, places to go. We have work to do in this world. And just after that few minutes with you, man, I am ready for the rest of the day like I wasn't before. So thank you for just this little dose, which was really perfect for me.
And Dan, just a few final words, and that is, so if you resonated with this modality at all, if this feels like something you're interested in, I offer a free session to anyone that wants to give it a try on our platform, which is breathworkonline.com, very simple. And we do 20 live sessions every month. So if it's something that you really want to make into a practice, like a yoga, to take it to the next level, we have sessions almost every day. So
I have to admit, you are definitely one of the most prolific breath workers out there. I mean, what a devotion, what a commitment to be there with people 5 days a week, every month, offering these sessions. It's just beautiful. And there's no reason why, if you got an internet, there's no reason why you can't jump in this game. And so that's how people find you, right? Breathwork Online. What's a repeat for me? How do people find you?
Just go to breathworkonline.com, and there's a little button in the States that says try a free breathwork session. And if some of you are thinking, oh my God, that many sessions, how will I afford it? We have subscription programs that can be just a few dollars a session. Part of my goal was to make it affordable so that anybody that wanted to could participate on a regular basis.
Beautiful. Well, we're all in the same game, Michael. I am so glad you are doing this work, just trying to bring breath work to everybody on the planet. I don't care who's teaching it. I don't care what kind of breath work they practice. Get your foot in the door, get yourself in the game, and your own spirit, your own intuition will take over and guide you. You're sort of a midwife for people connecting to their spirit, Michael. I love that about you. And I'm looking forward to the next time we have a chance to work together in person in the flesh. And in the meantime, I want to thank everybody who showed up. This was an amazing session with Michael Stone, NeuroDynamic Breathwork, wasn't it? And before we wrap up, any last words for us, Michael?
I guess my last words would be, learn to trust yourself. The most important thing is to do your inner work. And for me, the purpose of life is to expand, evolve, and grow. That's it for me. And even when you get into a relationship, I used to, before I had these kind of awakenings in breath work, relationships for me were more about, what can I get out of this relationship? Or, what's in it for me? And I've completely shifted that. It's like, now it's about, how can I support the other person to support, evolve, and grow in their life? What can I bring to this relationship? And you can apply that to everything in life. Rather than seeing what's in it for me, what can I take? What is life calling from me in this moment? How can I participate most fully? And really, those are my final words. And when I look at life that way, every moment is a gift. Every moment is a miracle. And it really takes me out of this kind of egocentric, what's in it for me, what's in it for me, and just opens up my possibilities and just makes life a joy to go through every day.
Well, and the way the universe works, we get back what we put out, brother, and you are putting out such wonderful energy in this world. Thank you for showing up for this summit. Thank you, everybody, for paying attention. And we're all done for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.